Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning.
Good morning, badass. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. And I just tested out LinkedIn to make sure we can see the comments because we had issues the last two times. And I said, let's go. Let us know you're here.
Yes. Yay. I'm so glad that it's working. That makes me so happy. It's so much easier to see your comments and to know that you guys are here for, all of the lovely engagement. And speaking of that, we had homework, right?
Yes. Let's pull that up. Here we go.
Yeah. So in what areas of my life do I feel stuck? And how can I recognize the rhythm that may help move me forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was our homework assignment for everyone on a previous episode. And last week we did a recorded video for you guys, but Kate came on live. And so the previous weeks we had asked this particular question. And so we're continuing the law of rhythm today, where we have two individuals that are going to be joining us on a panel. But we want to understand from you. Let us know that you're here. And if you can answer this question, if you've done your homework, if not, quickly do it. Like you normally did back when you were in school anyways.
Do it on the fly.
Were you that type of person, Kate? Did you do homework last minute?
Oh, yeah. It depended. I mean, I will say for my engineering classes, I did not. That homework took me forever. I didn't know until a couple years after college that I actually had dyscalculia. So I would transpose the numbers a lot, or like I had all sorts of issues. So that made so much sense as to why electrical engineering was so very hard for me. But I really loved solving those circuit problems and intense calculus problems. But yeah, it was a doozy. So I had to do it. I had to work on my engineering homework way ahead of time. But for any of the regular classes, business classes, plus anything else, I would wing it 100%. I could sit down and write. I could fill a blue book. Do they still have blue books? Like where you write where you write your essay, like Megan knows. It's like where you go in and you have a written, test and you have to write an essay in class, for like an hour or so. I could fill a blue book with very little preparation,
Wow.
if I needed to. So
That's crazy. I never really had to do any of that type of stuff. So
really,
that's interesting.
yeah.
And so, I was, I don't know. I think I was back and forth.
Okay.
On things I would always do. I would say I was last minute because I was typically doing it in the class before. Or like waiting until especially in high school, we had certain classes where you would just focus on the homework. I would do everything I could not to have homework to go home.
To get it done.
And to go like, what is this answer? What are you asking other people? What do you have?
Yeah, totally.
All right, we got some people coming in. We got some YouTubers today. Jen saying, hi, ladies. Happy Friday. I'm on for a hot minute to say hi. We'll listen in the background while working, multitasking as usual. And she said, have an awesome, badass day.
You too, J-Ro.
Oh, we got more people coming in. Kim says, good morning and happy Friday to my favorite, beautiful, badass ladies. We love that about you, Kim.
Yeah. Well, she also said, run the homework question across again, please.
Oh, so when you did homework, did you wait till the last minute?
Oh, no, I think she wants the one about being stuck.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, hang on. Let me go back. So the homework assignment was, in what areas of your life do I feel stuck? And how can I recognize the rhythm that may help me move forward? So maybe even if you're able to focus on the first part, what are areas in your life that you may feel stuck? Maybe you haven't figured out how you could recognize it. So maybe starting with that first part of that question. And so thank you for that. All right.
J-Ro.
All right.
I
She says,
piles of projects with deadlines. I'm trying to prioritize. My brain hops from one to another when I really need to stick with one at a time and get each done. But ADD, yeah. Oh, I hear you. Um, the only thing I could say that has been helpful to me lately is jotting things down on a to-do list rather than actually making the full jump. So
yeah.
I can't stop the pings in my head from being like, oh, did you do that? Oh, what about that? Or, oh, go look at that, Kate. But if I say, okay, just write it down and then go back to what you're doing, that has seemed to help. But
Yeah.
study your pattern around it, J-Ro, and see what you can come up with.
Yeah. Half of the battle is recognizing it, right?
Right.
Lisa's joining us. She said, Happy Friday, everyone. Eric is also with us. He said, Good, badass morning. And so we're curious to hear from both of you. And we also have Maria. She says, I've got 30 minutes. Let's get in.
Let's go.
So what areas do you feel stuck, Maria? So let's go ahead and get in with that homework assignment. And then let's go ahead and bring up our two panelists. So let's flip over and make sure to unmute. All right. And so today we have Steve and Meghan, and I thought that you guys might be, it might be good to have you do an introduction to yourself. Just let us know, who are you? And so, Steve, would you like to start things off?
Sure, I'll give Megan a break, seeing that she's a couple hours behind us here. So, first of all, thank you,
Meghan, you need to
Sarah.
unmute.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Sarah, and thank you, Kate, for this awesome opportunity. I've been a lurker for a while on the BOYBAS Badass show here for a while, and I've commented every once in a while. But awesome here to be live with you. So who I am, I really feel like I belong here. So I really appreciate the invite, because as I was listening to the homework assignment that everybody had, it's talking about in what areas in our lives do we feel stuck. So I am going to list the 4 things that motivate me and share, and it'll be interesting to see the connection here. But first of all, who I am a husband of 1. I was very fortunate to marry my high school sweetheart. And an interesting fact about us is my wife's maiden name was Martin. So I tell everybody that I actually took her name when I got married. Husband of 1. I am a father of 2. We have 2 beautiful girls. Very fortunate to have both of them and their families close by to us. And as a result, we get the benefit of being, I am a papa of 4. So I have 4 grandkids. Having the 2 girls, of course, God played a little trick on us, and the first 3 grandkids were boys. We were getting very nervous, but we're finally blessed a few years back having our first granddaughter. So that's a little bit of who I am. The things that motivate me as a person who really loves continuous improvement. If you've read my LinkedIn profile in my About section, you will see that what motivates me is I call them my 4 Ps. And so it's people who need help is the first one. And then this one really resonates with me today, people who feel stuck. And the third one that involve people is people willing to learn. Those 3 types of people really motivate me. And then the fourth one, being the engineer that I am, puzzles really motivate me. So really looking forward to this discussion and chat, talking about the rhythm of life.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, Meghan, if you can do a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my motivating and the thing that encapsulates all of who I am is I am somebody who works for the highest good of all beings, and I am, if I had to pick one role for the rest of my life, it would be teacher. I have been a teacher. I was a classroom teacher for almost a decade. I taught English as a foreign language and then Japanese as a foreign language. I am
a seed planter, a community builder. I am somebody who um, just follows the rhythms in my life, and that what I work with when with what I conceive to be spirit. Other people may just know it as the universe, and that's totally fine. And I'm lucky to get the breadcrumbs of where to go next. So I say that I'm a bloom where I'm planted kind of a person, and I am extremely good at working with the timing that shuffles us all together in exactly the right order that we need to be able to take the next steps. So that is a huge part of who I am.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so, Kate, maybe we go to a little bit. I noticed we have one person that has talked about the things related to being unstuck. So I would like to pull that up. So I typically get stuck at junctures that require high emotional labor. Ooh. And sometimes in ways that I am still developing the skill. Ooh, I can relate to that. What about you guys?
For sure. I think, especially, before I had a lot of the skills I had, I had a lot of fear around high emotions, right? Um, I don't have the fear anymore, but I can get stuck, like when you think about the things that you should be doing and what's going to have the most impact, the areas that are easy and fast to do, right, kind of gravitate usually to the top of your priority list. And the stuff that's going to be a little more draining, a little more emotional, that can sometimes be really urgent, like you still need to do it, right? But it just, it's heavier, and so it doesn't float up to the top as quite as fast. So I get that, Maria, 100%.
And Maria, I don't know if this is the case for you, but when I hear emotional labor, often I'm hearing work that is really somebody else's work to do, but nobody's doing it in the situation we're in, so that I'm taking on more than my fair share of any labor that has to go around. So yeah, that can definitely feel burdensome and lead to feelings of stuckness for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. That word labor, right? Yeah, definitely.
Steve, thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I'd like to just say hi to my sister Maria there. No relation, but we are connected and in relation on the No BS tribe. So good to see Maria here. That's exactly what I was thinking, Megan, as well. Emotional labor. There's my emotional labor, and then there's your emotional labor. And I think where we get stuck is the connection between those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know for me, I used to get very stuck when I felt overwhelmed. And so when you are feeling that you don't know which way to go, but I've really spent, I think I've feel like in a lot of ways that's something that I've really spent a lot of time dealing with and understanding that I just need to slow down and take a breath and go more inward and take time. That it's okay to feel that way, but focusing on releasing that overwhelming feeling and knowing it's okay that you don't know the answer right now, and just spending a little more time feeling versus thinking is the key thing that I've been doing more of.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I feel compelled to tell you all that growing up, I had a family that lived near me, and their last name was Martin, and they had 8 kids, and all of them had the first name. They were all M names. So there was a Maria Martin, there was a Mark Martin, there was a Michael, there was a Monica, there's all of them. And they were just a really lovely, lovely family. And my brother was really close with my Mark, and so Mark was a fixture in our home. And then Maria babysat us. So I have very fond memories of the last name Martin, and I think it's hilarious that you and your wife both had the same last name, and you were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see Maria's comment there. She's brother from another mother. She's saying that's what she calls me. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that Martin. I actually wrote way back when a story about me growing up in the middle. So I grew up on a circle, and our house was exactly midway on the circle from where you entered and exited the circle. And I went into detail about everything in my life growing up was sort of in the middle. I was a middle child. The name Martin, so M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, exactly in the middle of the English alphabet, 26 letters. So interesting that that family chose to have everybody's names start with M as well, their first names.
Yeah. All
My
right. Well,
parents had no idea what they were doing when they named me Steve Martin. It was a little bit before the time. So
yes.
high school was really interesting to me. I was very popular from the standpoint of everybody knew who my name was. After they got to meet me, they were like, ah, it's just him. Okay, so we'll move on. But it gets my foot in the door.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to jump into our first question for the panel. And I'm also going to ask our audience this question as well. So, can you share a personal experience where disrupting a pattern led to a significant positive change? And maybe Megan, you can go first on this one.
Sure. Thanks so much, Sarah. Okay, so this is a really big one for me. According to the stories of my mother, I have had a pattern since I was a tiny child of putting other people's needs before mine, to the point where we went to Disney World and I was thirsty. I wanted a drink from the drinking fountain, and I kept letting other kids go ahead of me in line because I don't know. I don't even know what my motivation was with that. But she had to finally like push me up to the front to get me to get a drink of water. And and this has played out in so many relationships throughout my life. So I was in a period where I was incredibly stuck. I was in a relationship where I was talk about emotional labor, and not to mention the economic labor in this household. And when I finally stepped back and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't be providing all of the labors on all of the levels. I need to put me first, and I need to put myself in a relationship where I am seen and celebrated for the person who I am now and the person who I am becoming, because this relationship was many years, and I was still seen as what I was back then, basically.
Right.
And so I'm seeing the image of like pulling the plug out of a bathtub. So when an opportunity presented itself that I was able to jump into, like everything changed. Everything changed. Everything from, I had a new prospect of a place to live, and make a move. The business that I was trying to start at the time, I got my first like real referral and booking, and like, let's go. It just all started to click together. But it didn't happen until I made the change to drain the tub.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Super vulnerable. And we've all had those moments, but you put it quite eloquently, and what a great analogy, right? Where you pull that plug, and the synchronicity of like the universe or source or God, whatever, showing up for you, right? Like you manifested it. You put your energy out there. This is what I'm going to do, and this is why I'm going to do it. And it was so many years in the making, right? And then it was right there for you, right when you were ready.
Yep, exactly.
I feel like a lot of people probably can relate, because I'll hear other individuals talk about that, the people pleasing side of things, and really, digging in and understanding the why as well. So was that something you also did, is dug in and found the why and why you were a people pleaser?
Yeah, that's definitely and an ongoing piece of work for me of because I know that's my natural tendency.
Mhm.
Right.
It's something that I need to sort of recalibrate and check in with on ongoing. And I guess that's again, like I said, I want to be seeing all beings around me thrive. So if I have more than another person around me, my natural inclination is to try and bring us to some kind of equilibrium, to some kind of balance. I mean, that's why my business is called Rebalancing Time. I mean, that's exactly what I do in my work. So it's a balance between going overboard and being people pleaser to the detriment of my own self and my own needs, versus giving what I can freely and joyfully give. And I think the joy for me is the key piece of it. When I lose that joy, when it starts to feel like this like nagging obligation, that's one of my clues that my rhythm is off.
I love that. I love that you have a clue that you have honed in on to understand, is this balanced or not? Nice.
Yeah.
Steve,
It's
what do you
awesome.
think? So let me pull up the question again. I'm going to pull it up this way this time. Can you share a personal experience where disrupting a pattern led to a significant positive change?
Yeah, this is definitely personal for me. And the key word there is disrupting or a disruption. So I was very fortunate to grow up in a very tight household. Both my mom and dad were very loving, loved all of us kids. I had four very supportive grandparents. And I grew up in church from when I was younger. And one of the things that I noticed early on in my life was there was a lot of older people in our church, and I want to talk about funerals. So, going to a funeral, I remember very personally early on in life seeing how different people, like when somebody outside of our family passed away and we had to go to that funeral, how they reacted versus what my family and my church reacted to. So it was always for us, funerals were seen as sort of a positive thing. It was this celebration of life instead of seeing things in the negative.
Yeah.
Where it was always a moment in time where people were asked to share memories, positive things that they remembered about the person. So it was always a celebration of life. So the disruption for me happened and I was very fortunate where those close to me, my siblings, my relatives, my friends and family, I didn't have anybody close to me that was dying. It was all people sort of on the outside fringes. Then I went away to college, and when I was a freshman, one of the very first things that happened, I had moved away. I was about 11 hours away from home, which for me was very different. And one of the things that happened when I was away in college was my grandfather, who I was very close to. He was the one responsible for basically why I'm an engineer today. He passed away, and it was sort of unexpected. So you sort of say, where's the positive change to that? I can remember even now my father calling me. I get a call from my father at college, and he just, how's it going? Everything's good. Miss you really. And then he was like, hey, I got some news. Grandpa passed away. And for me, it was extremely personal. And I remember the first thing that my father told me was, you don't need to come home. He knew that, missing time away at college, it was at a point in the year where it was going to be difficult to get away from my studies and things like that. But I can remember him saying, look, you know where grandpa is, and we're going to have the service here. He goes, unless you want to, you can stay away. Would about the positiveness of it. And I just remember that positive change of realizing, knowing where that you're secure, that somebody's looking out for you, really, really helped in that instance.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing. I think that's really cool on a few different levels. It's really cool that that's how your family, that's how you were raised, how to view kind of the circle of life, and such a positive experience there. And then I think how you ended, the the time you were just chatting, when you talked about how, that support and that stability that you had, really kind of shone through, and kind of, I think that's just beautiful that you were able to feel that support and experience it in a moment when a lot of other people would have been really struggling.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Megan, Jenna, my wife is not coming on. She was struggling to get on into LinkedIn, but she sent me a little note and wanted me to tell you that you could probably figure out where that people pleasing came through if you did like a past life regression. Have you ever done something like that? Like any quantum stuff? Because you could do regression therapy and figure that out. It would be really cool.
Yeah, not per se. Most of my work that I do involves ancestral work, so it involves kind of other souls in the past,
right?
Versus like what my own soul has done in the past. So
right,
it's definitely a different discipline, and that's a really good suggestion. Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah.
And then I do want to pull up a comment that came. So David is joining us for the first time. So thank you, David. It looks like you also have a connection with Megan here. He said that Megan actually helped me here on LinkedIn dealing with a massive trauma I was going through. So that's awesome.
That's awesome, Megan.
It was my honor, David. I'm so glad that you were able to navigate that piece of your life skillfully. Yeah. I've been there. On so many levels, and that's why I was able to recognize in you. So much love goes out to you, David.
That's amazing.
All right, I'm going to go to the next question.
Well, can we pause a second because we need to bring up Maria's comment. Maria identifies as the disruption. I just think that's amazing. I am the disruption. All right, go ahead. Move on.
I do have to say I identify with that as well. It's funny, as I've continued to do more research into myself, everything from astrology to divine was turning me on to Mayan. It's sort of a Mayan astrology. It was quite interesting to read that as well. And one of the things that it said is that I'm the knife. So, and it very much resonated with me because what it talked about is that the knife, like in a surgical perspective, is it goes in, it cuts, and it's going to take out some things, but it's also meant to heal as well. So the piercing words, sometimes people might not be, they might take it in a particular way. I always say that I'm a little bit of a provoker, but it's also meant to sort of make people shift and get a little uncomfortable, because when we disrupt things, we then start to self-reflect and we start to understand a little bit more about our deeper self and that unconscious side. So for me, I was like, oh shit, I'm supposed to, and it basically told me like, be that, don't hold yourself back on doing those types of things. So I thought, that's a pattern, or that is a pattern for me. And that's also, sometimes I would hold myself back. And finally, whenever I got to the point of not holding back and just being myself, I became more vulnerable. I became more open with things that had happened to me. I then noticed more of a connection with people. So that's how I would describe my disruption.
I've actually seen you step out as the knife, Sarah, many times, and it's always helped either myself or others. So it's good that you see that in yourself.
Yeah, and recognize it as the gift that it is, and it's okay to offend, as long, a little bit. Like, it's okay. It doesn't, it happens, that's a part of life. Like, not everything is supposed to sit with you extremely well. So those that are in a place where they might feel offended by the sharpness of your knife, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not still meant to be.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go to the next question. How can individuals identify which patterns in their lives are holding them back from reaching their goals? Kate, I actually want to go to you first and see what your thoughts are on this.
Oh yeah. This is such an important question for me because it's something I actually just learned in the past, 3 to 4 years, honestly, is awareness. So the ability to observe yourself and be aware of what is happening is so key. So for so long, I was definitely a people pleaser, but I was also a little kind of numb. The way that my traumas kind of manifested from an early age, I was disassociating a lot. I was really blocking out. I was really unaware of a lot of things. And so when I was able to learn the tools to observe, and it was kind of, it was, the tools that I'm talking about are really fairly simple. Like being aware of the spectrum of emotions, that there's more than just happy and mad, and being aware of what it feels like inside, so you can recognize those things. And like what Megan was talking about, the clues or the triggers or the other things, but for me, it was all about that awareness and gaining the skills, and having a framework and tools around recognizing those things. So that was really key for me.
Nice. Steve, what do you think on this? So I'll pull it back up. So how can individuals identify which patterns in their lives are holding them back from reaching their goals?
Yeah, listening to Kate there, she said awareness, to be aware of yourself. One of the things that I was thinking of is one of the best things you can do to make sure you identify those patterns is to make sure that you're in community and you're not doing it by yourself. I think sometimes we get stuck with our blind spots, and we all have blind spots, and they're not necessarily good or bad. I wouldn't categorize them as that. Sometimes blind spots can be a good thing. They protect us. But I would say that's one really good idea, is make sure that you're not going this alone. And it was interesting how Kate, you started off, saying a lot of and making sure that you were aware of that and all that. And I think the next level to that, and you actually got there, was recognizing it and getting the help with others to be able to, okay, where is my blind spot? Do I have a blind spot here? And how do we move this from the current situation to something better? Not necessarily good or bad, but just where we are and how can we get better?
Absolutely, Steve.
So I want to go to Megan, but we're getting a lot of comments. So let me pull some of those up. So Chris is joining us from YouTube. I see we have several people from YouTube. So just listen, learn, and lead in every aspect of our lives. And Maria said, y'all carry on being bad. Definitely catch up on the second half. And Divine is joining us as well. She's saying greetings, lovely people. And so David is also saying, yay, Megan. Oh, I appreciate this, Divine. She said, don't forget to like the video. Yes, please. Help us out. Help us grow this movement. So I appreciate you, sister. And then Chris also says there is unity in community. Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
And then Divine said, yes, awareness and willingness. So I am going to add a little bit to what Steve said and then go to Megan. So one of the things that stood out to me in what you said, something that Jesse and Jen say is make sure not to surround yourself with bobbleheads, meaning people that are just going to agree to you and won't challenge you. So for me, one of the ways that we can really identify the pattern is to surround ourselves with people that are willing to be upfront with us and sort of call us out. When we don't do that, we're not really looking for continuous improvement. We're not really looking for change. We're just wanting to stay in the pattern that we're going to keep those blinders on because it just isn't something. I think avoidance is probably the biggest challenge that most people have. Megan, what are you thinking?
Well, one of my favorite ways of getting clues about anything is by paying attention to the body. because no matter what happens, if there is a stressor, if there is a situation that your heart and soul is cringing, is just being burdened by the weight of whatever situation it is going to show up in your body.
Right.
So you can, and it works both ways, right? Because when you start to work on the body, when you start to give it that time and attention and the movement or whatever it's asking for, you can make changes and find more possibilities from a mental perspective. But also when you start to change your thinking, when you start to, actively take changes in your life to disrupt patterns and disrupt situations, that can provide relief to your body, because it doesn't have to be shackled to that pattern anymore.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so good, Megan. Can you bring up the question again, Sarah, just so I can make the connection to the last part? Yeah. It says from reaching their goals. So being in continuous improvement for me, that's a big thing, is of getting everybody on the same page to reach the goals. And so the question there is, how do you know? How do you know you've reached the goal? So there needs to be some sort of a measurement. And what Megan just said is, and it's interesting, Megan, how you actually did it to the physical body. So when you're by yourself, you can feel bad and you're not reaching your goals and your potential. And so the gap there's nothing to identify the gap. It's just you. When you have others in your lives, though, now, I mean, how many times have we had something happen to us and you walk into the room and somebody says, Megan, you don't look so good today. Are you feeling okay? That's the body is given a signal. And without that extra person there or community, you don't make the connection. So now the gap is identified and you can work together to fix it. So
I think it can be a combination of the two, because I feel like I've been doing both. So like I have a community that will call me out, but I've also been learning by just doing visualization or doing meditation and spending time and really understanding my body. I will feel pain, for example, in my body, and that pain correlates to things that I need to pay attention to. So for me, some of the goals are some of the things that actually demonstrate, one, I understand more, I'm learning more about my human design. So whenever I feel frustration, that's a sign that I'm not being myself. Whenever I'm feeling basically success or relief, or as Megan said earlier, the joy, like you're feeling the joy. So when you recognize the difference between those different things, you can individually do that as well. Understand are you reaching the goal individually? But I also think it's an and it's great to have people around us that also call us out as well. Kate, what are you thinking?
Oh yeah, 100%. And they are intertwined, right? So at least for me, in my experience, I couldn't quite understand how Jenna was able to see things in me and call me out on things, because I had no ability to do that for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once I gained some of those skills and understood some of the tools that I could use, then it made so much more sense, and plus, like, just, learning to trust, like all of us that have had trauma, like trust is just a huge component. And you can't have a great community without trust, right? And but they're very intertwined. So if you are on that path of trying to become more aware and to disrupt a pattern, know that is also going to give you some of the things you need in community building, and that's coming, that's on the path itself as well. And then I did want to just mention, Steve talked about is that that alignment that you need to have in community, when he's talking about continuous improvement and working toward the goal. Mm-hmm. Alignment is really important when there's a bunch of us working towards a goal, but it's also really important when it's individual, right? So like one of the ways that I learned to apply alignment to my own life was to have a set of core values, and then to individually ask myself when I'm struggling with something is, okay, what is the solution that actually lines up with my values? not the solution that's easy, not the solution that has the emotional labor, whatever else is there. What's the one that aligns with my values, right? And that would help me guide. So so that alignment is just like we were saying, it's important in community, but it's important in individual sense as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the question, and I'm curious to go into the audience and see some of their thoughts as well. So, how can individuals identify which patterns in their lives are holding them back from reaching their goals? I can tell you one of the things that I have discovered is 80% of my actions are unconscious. I have no idea why it is I'm even doing things. So I actually meet every other week with a dream. I do dream analysis. I meet with a depth psychologist to uncover the shit that I just don't know. You know, because half of life, you don't understand your actions. And so we will do analysis. And I just, you know, had some dreams that we were analyzing this week. And a part of it was a very interesting dream, and I won't get into it today, but it really revealed so many deeper things that, you know, it's that, and let me pull up, I saw someone had a comment, I think it was Divine. It is, oh, there's so many comments. Hang on one second. I'm trying to find it. There. Healing the inner child. And we won't, you know, be as offensive. We all just want love, encouragement, and understanding. So a lot of times what I am finding is that it really is that inner child that has the things that were going on, you know, as I was growing up, or things that I still am struggling with today. And so it's all of those unconscious things that you don't even know are really impacting you as well. But I think the goal is that, you know, you're recognizing, oh, this is the pattern. This is how I feel. How do I also not feel, or not necessarily not feel, but how do I react maybe differently when these things happen? Because we still need to feel, you know, what it is we feel, but it's more about, am I going to, you know, be mad at my husband and go off on him and react a particular way? Or am I going to go, okay, there's that pattern again, and have a better conversation with them?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Do we want to go on to the next question, or other thoughts on this?
I'm ready.
Okay. And so I am going to go to Divine real quick. Yes, human design, me, a generator with sacral satisfaction. Yep, satisfaction responses. And she also said, now you know why I got that good energy. All right. So let's go into the next question. So in your opinion, I still got this up. In your opinion, what are the barriers that prevent people from disrupting their established patterns? Well, I like this question.
Yeah, this is a great one.
Megan, you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about just breaking the pattern in my life that felt like, you know, the plug in the bathtub got pulled. And when our life is kind of characterized by stagnation, you know, if we can feel like a goldfish that, you know, feels like to try and jump out of that bathtub, try and jump out of that fishbowl that we're in, it can be just an insurmountable reach to do that from where we are. And that's why just finding ways to do something new, to do something that you wouldn't normally do. You know, it might be something like, even if you're doing the same morning routine, do things in a different order. It might be something like, if you do a certain kind of exercise, and that's like your routine, you do the stationary bike, or you go for a run, or you do something different about it. Because what will happen in that case, especially as you do this out in community, out into the world, that will put you in different places, and that will put you in different connections with different people, and you never know who you are going to meet. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know what you're going to see if you choose a different path for your walk or your run. That could, change and inspire you. And I am really lucky to be living right now in Portland, Oregon, where Portlandians, we inspire each other. We create art, we put art, we celebrate the weirdness. And, all of us are doing this in different ways. I choose performance art when I go out of the streets. And I purposely try to help people disrupt their patterns just by seeing me, just by seeing what I'm doing in the world. So we all have the potential to push and to like we're playing billiards, to knock each other's balls in a completely different trajectory that could make all the difference.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, the what you were focusing on is like how people can disrupt the pattern. But what do you think the barriers are? Like what's actually keeping them from doing those suggestions you're talking about?
I think it's just easy. It's just we get into a rut. We get into the familiar and what we know. Change is scary. So, and that's why, like I said, focusing on even small changes can make a difference. Because doing, it's the old adage, you do the same thing, you get the same result. So if we want to see different things, we have to, even just the smallest pushes to do something different and to get a different kind of motion in our life. I think people can feel very, very alone in doing so as well. And that, having that community support is important. But if you don't have that, just cultivating a deep knowing that putting some new movement in your life can make an impact. You do not, I know, especially in this day and age, it can be so tempting to feel like you are on a path of drudgery and just not making a difference, not making an impact. What does life even mean? Why do I even bother? So all of these are barriers when we think that way. But just that little change, that little interaction can make a total difference in somebody's day, in your day. And that's how we all move each other, I think.
Absolutely. I think if I can jump in, and then I'd love to hear what's going on with Steve and how you're viewing this. I think what Meghan talked about with just doing something new and not staying in that same old rut. I think one of the biggest things that actually is a barrier that we often don't see or we forget about, and you kind of got to it when you talked about change is scary, is fear. Just fear. What are you afraid of? Like, like when you're deep down inside, if there is something preventing you from doing something, it's a lot of times it's fear. And so, it's a huge thing when you can learn to not live in fear. And I know that was huge for us as well. Steve, what are your thoughts? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask, I really wanted to dive into Steve, because Steve, you deal with continuous improvement. So you see barriers all the time.
Yes.
And I also want to just make sure, like my internet has been blipping out.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else's has been as well. So I'm hoping that you guys are able to hear us all. And so, Steve, I'll pull up the question. So in your opinion, what are the barriers that prevent people from disrupting their established patterns? I know you see this a lot.
Yeah, and I'm going to tie directly into Meghan. Meghan, you have no idea when you were talking, as I was sort of thinking about the live stream and how the discussions may go. And I'm just going to repeat a couple of the things that you said when you said sometimes people feeling alone. So again, you're doing everything by yourself, not in community. And what I was, being the engineer that I am, and I like graphs and data and things like that. So I started talking about not defining things as good or bad necessarily. So the issue when you live life by yourself, sure you can be on. I'll do the graph. You know, on the when you're on the high side, you're you can be celebrating the high. And then when you're on the low side, obviously you got to deal with that. The interesting thing you had said, somebody on the path of drudgery. I love that term. I was like, one of the things that I do, I'll put a hashtag future lyrics in there. I write things down like that because I like to write music, and those are really good lyrics. So the path of drudgery, that I don't know how I'd tie it into a song, but when you were talking, Megan, and describing that, no matter if your path is doing this, you're just along that path and there's no connection. And again, it's not good or bad. But when you were saying just make one little change in your life and get out, change the
Yeah.
pattern a little bit. And the concept there is somebody is on the path of drudgery. They're kind of going down, and here you are. And it's not good or bad. It's just because you made that change, there's a connection point. And it could be on a high, it could be on a low, it could be in the middle. The important thing to know there is you did something to make that connection and make that change. So if you're on a high and you both connect there, you can celebrate together. If you're on a low, you can support each other in that low. And then there's everything in between. And that, to me, that's what life is all about. And Megan, when you said things like the common good, that's what you're all about. I actually studied that in continuous improvement. And it's literally what changed my career path is when I traveled to Japan and studied the principles of lean manufacturing with Toyota. That was when I finally made that very personal connection. For me, I was just the stupid young punk engineer, and my company had said, you're going to go over to Japan and you're going to learn this lean stuff and all that. For me, it was very technical, and it was very, oh, I love to help people. I'm a nice
Yeah.
guy. But when I heard the consultant actually say, before you step out onto the floor, before you talk to anybody, you have to recognize that your ultimate purpose is to help the overall good. It was actually a comment that Toyota actually said, the creator of Toyota. And he actually said that's the main purpose, which everybody's main purpose should be, is to help the overall good. And that stuck with me so well. And now every time I get to do what I do in continuous improvement, that's what I'm always thinking about when I'm coaching, where I try to, it doesn't matter where I am. I may actually be having a bad day personally, but
Right.
somebody that comes into my life and I now have the responsibility to coach them and they're not having a good day. Think about, so we make a connection. I'm having a bad day, they're having a bad day. We don't know that about each other, but yet me as the coach, if I approach it from the overall good, I can celebrate the fact that I now connected with them at that level where they are, and I have the opportunity to actually help them get better. And that helps me get better. So
Mhm.
really cool connection there.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I've been listening to each of you. So, the things that I heard, Megan talked about comfort in the routine or what it is we're doing that it would disrupt, like they don't want to disrupt. Like I like it this way. So that comfort, Kate, you talked um,
Oh, Sarah's
Ne-
struggling.
fear of
Yep. Now I'm hearing Sarah bouncing in and out.
Yeah, she's been freezing as well.
I'm
Well,
going to
I
follow
want.
up on her. Oh, go ahead, because I have
I
something to say,
I
Kate,
think
if
I'm
you don't
back
mind.
again. You guys tell me.
Oh, she is back. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay.
You think I'm back? All right. And so you guys were talking about fear, of different things as well. And then also, I think, you were talking about it. Sometimes it's also about a habit, that's a habit that you're used to. I want to throw in one other thing. I think that attachments, so
Mm,
emotional attachments to things is also a barrier because we're attached to an idea, we're attached to an identity, we're attached to even people, and think about all the things that we're attached to and we're unwilling to leave.
Oh, don't cut out now, Sarah. You're just about ready to give that really, really good point.
I know my internet keeps going down. I can see it, spinning. Everybody goes away. And so I don't
Go
know
ahead,
what's
you're
going
back.
on with my internet. Okay. So I don't know what's going on, but it was the attachments, emotional attachments to everything in your life that you have to be willing to release. And the moment you're able to release, like you're able to let go of the idea or where it is you think your life should be, those types of things, those are also things that keep us from really disrupting and finding even better paths forward.
Yeah. And when you think about that connected with what Steve is talking about and Megan about the common good, we in this society, and that's kind of leading us into the next question, right? But it's a really common thing in our country for us to be attached to our selfish goals, right? To be attached to the items that are going to get us there, attached to the progress that'll get us there. But focusing on the common good is in a lot of ways releasing that attachment, right? Like my worth is even more valuable when I am seeing the entire picture, when I care more about the world around me than I do internally, or at least equally, right? When I'm motivated by everyone achieving and everyone getting to that plateau of joy, Steve, what are your thoughts? I know you had something else that you wanted to
Oh, you
share.
have no idea how you just connected with going over this last question last night. You mentioned the one word. I'm not going to say it until we get to the question, but it's so good. Yeah, what Sarah was saying. Sarah mentioned identity, and I don't think I directly answered question 3 yet. For me, I think one of the barriers is lack of identity. Or lack of
Ooh,
self-worth. Um,
yeah.
Sometimes that can be as a result of bad upbringing, and you have to work through some of those things. But something that I was thinking about, and Sarah, you brought it right back to me, and I was like, oh, I forgot to mention that. When you're talking about these attachments, I think a lot of times we attach, in the context of self-worth, we attach to things we relate to things of what we are and not who we are. And it's so important because what happens is what we are, we can't necessarily control the what. And I think we're going to be in discussions on question 4 about that. That's one of the interesting things going on right now. But it can be anything. But if it's a what, you don't necessarily have control over that. It could be good or bad. But when it's who you are is who you are. And it doesn't matter if there's bad news. I mean, I think about the plane crash that just happened. What was it, a day or two ago? That can bring a lot of people down emotionally. And we should obviously be empathetic and sympathetic and feel that. But if that's all you take in, then it's going to be a bad day for you. But if you recognize who you are in that case, it's like, I'm fortunate that I wasn't involved in that, or I can go and help those. If there was somebody that was affected, I can go and help them. So I think identity is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's go
absolutely.
to the last question because I think it's a juicy one. And so, what are societal patterns that you believe need urgent disruption, and what steps can be taken to initiate the change? Megan, you want to go?
Sure. So the big overarching thing that I see is that most humans on the planet today have forgotten how to live in a state of reciprocity with all of the beings around them, all the life around them, not just the humans, but all the life around them. Indigenous thinking, indigenous ways of life have carried this forward, and it's possible because those of us who don't have any connection to an indigenous culture, it's possible to learn this. But the ways that we think about giving and receiving of resources, and giving in commensurate for the effort that has been expended, and giving back to those who nourish and enrich us, because the bear eats the salmon, but that doesn't mean that the salmon gets to eat the bear, right? But
Right.
the bear eats the salmon, the bear fertilizes the forest takes care of the river takes care of the salmon. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a one-to-one back and forth at reciprocity, but all of us together. And the mechanism that I see working so beautifully, like we just watched the fire aid for the LA fires, and all these musicians getting together to raise money for that, is gifting, a gift economy. People who are able to give with what they have to where they see the needs around, and that is that's the basic mechanism that I see working, and that's what I do a lot of work towards in my own work. So thank you. I'll give it to Steve. I know we're running short on time here.
So good, Megan. Yeah, and so you were talking exactly around what Kate had brought up, and the word that she used was selfishness. I really think that's one thing that needs to change is selfishness. 2,000, 3,000 years ago, those that were around you, that were living with you, that you needed them. Like, you bring up the point about you may be down by the river and you're looking for a salmon, and all of a sudden there's a bear behind you and you're by yourself. You now have a big problem. But those that were around you, and you talk about reciprocity, they would do it because back then you had to. And think about how our society is changing now, and the fact that there's more of us on the earth, and we're closer and closer together. And the closer we get together, I think it goes back to what Maria was saying, my sister from another mother there, when she was, why don't we reciprocate with others? And it's because one of the issues is because it takes so much emotional labor. It's harder. It's actually harder. But that doesn't mean it's not better. It can be harder, but the question is it better? That's my hashtag better is the word that I love. I think in order to get there, we have to use up some of that emotional labor, and it's worth it. Other people are worth it. So that's the way that I would answer that question, is I think we need to get over selfishness. I go back to the golden rule. It was a long time ago. Somebody very wise said, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think if we did that, and I think we need to just recognize those things that we have in common. There's more in common that we have with each other than our differences. And to me, the way that I relate to it is with those curves of, it doesn't matter where you are, you're good or bad. Like we compartmentalize people so much, and when we try to separate instead of coming together. That's the connection that I made with our discussions today, is it doesn't matter where you are, the ebb of life. You could be towards that path of drudgery, or you could be going up to the mountaintop. Be mindful and make the connections with those around you on wherever you are and wherever they are, and recognize that we have the ability to make each other's lives better.
Yeah. I love all of this.
Me too. I feel like, I could talk about this forever. And especially with the two of you, I am just in love with this panel. I would love to have you guys together again, because you're very different, but you're also like so super connected and able to weave in and out of each other. So it's been very, very cool to watch and be a part of. So I thank you so much. The one thing I want to kind of toss out there is, I think if we're talking about a societal pattern and like the urgent disruption and that needs to be there to initiate that change, right? The only aspect of selfishness that I think makes the most sense is the recognition that you have the power. Like, you do have the power to initiate change, and it doesn't have to be on this grand, huge scale. I mean, awesome if it can be, right? But like me, where I'm in my journey right now, is we have 6 kids. And so our choice and our desire is to help create 6 awesome humans that go into the world and love more, and go into the world and do more for each other, right? And so then we take that, and how do we do that? Okay, when we model this, we insist on kindness. We are a team, all of these little things. And that's just what I can do, right? That doesn't mean that everyone else has 6 kids and they're going to go do that. But that's the place that I am in my life, right? And if we can each see the power that we have and the community that we have and the ability that we have in our own little worlds to model that and create more of that, it will have these awesome ripple effects and that we know and we talk about. And Jen Lacey is amazing at bringing this back to us. You know, that's the oneness that we need. And you know, I'm super excited about this and the way we're ending this conversation today, because our next month here on BOYBAS, we are covering the law of oneness. So this whole question of, you know, what we all are feeling and all talking about, that, you know, doing things for the common good, you know, that's a oneness. And just what Steve just said, you know, that we are all more alike than we are not. So just super grateful for this today.
I'm so grateful for how this is ending. One thing that I would leave us with in thinking about societal, basically societal patterns that need to be urgently disrupted. For me, that would be less judgment. So come at things from a questioning our beliefs. Why do I feel the way that I feel? Who taught me to feel the way that I feel, you know, or believe the things that I believe? I think the more we focus in on questioning what it is we believe versus questioning other people, the more we spend more time questioning ourselves than questioning other people. And I went down again. Am I back?
You're back.
I think I'm about to go down again. But it's ultimately questioning ourselves versus questioning other people's intentions.
Yeah, getting curious. Getting curious internally, right? Because, well, the truth of the matter is, you can question and judge all you want. It doesn't make a damn difference. You know, like I can go out and say like, oh, I don't like the way they're doing this. You know, I can't really change that, you know.
And how is that helping society? By judging people and by, you know, and I've been seeing this a lot, like people questioning the younger generation and what it is they're wearing. And I'm like, okay, we've always done, you know, like every generation has done that. You know, when can we get to a point where we just stop that and just allow people to be who they are and just simply be curious as we're communicating to them, and be more curious about why it is you believe what you believe.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm going to pull this up. Maria says, yes, ask self where that came from.
Oh, she's back.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah. In us, and I want to say,
you're breaking up. I think you might be asking for one of us to end us today.
You,
yeah, that me?
If you want to end it today, yeah, please.
She's coming at you with a knife, Kate.
What?
She's coming at you with a knife.
Yes. As she does. That's why we get along so well. So what a beautiful conversation today to close out our month-long discussion around the law of rhythm. I don't think we could have brought a better panel on today. And just so you are all aware, this happens more spontaneously than you would even think. We actually had 2 other guests scheduled for this panel. And right, exactly. They backed out, and here we are. I could not have dreamed of a better panel to have this discussion today. So I am eternally grateful to both Steve and Meghan for being here, and super glad that I got a chance to dig in a little bit deeper with each of you. And this is just the beginning. I hope that our connection can continue here. But the important thing about the law of rhythm is the awareness that we can bring to ourselves and our communities around patterns and the ebbs and the flows of life, and in using those in whatever way that we can, to make changes for good, and to help those around us and to better our community. So thank you so much. And I can't think of anything more badass than, making the world a better place, right? So thank you so much, guys, for being here. And I hope you all go out and have a badass making the world a better place weekend.
Thanks for the kind words, Kate. Thank you, Sarah, and really nice to synergize with you, Megan. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you, Sarah and Kate and Steve. This is really, truly a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone, for all of the comments from our
Yes.
audience as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for the engagement, guys. It means the world to us when we get to do this in less of a vacuum than and actually hear from all of you. So thank you.